Can you hear? Can you understand? Can you understand over here? Some say yes, some say no. Yes and no. No in the balcony. No. Back there, y'all able to understand? I'm going to address that in my sermon today. The last 2 weeks, we've had exceptional hearing. We had an event last night in the church, and one of the things we've got to work on is when people come in who are not part of the church, we've got to watch how they use our sound system. And that's part of the reason, so I'll apologize for that. But let me begin by saying Merry Christmas. It's good to see all of you. Merry Christmas to you. I hope it's a great one. I hope I'll see you at either 3, 5, or 7. And I'm not going to be here at 11, but we are having services at 11. Pick one and come. Look forward to seeing you. Give me just a minute to say how thankful I am for the new Bible stand that is here. And the Bible stand will be in the congregation, and hopefully, always we will have people from the congregation reading God's holy word instead of the clergy. It's the word of God for the people of God, and so most of the time the scriptures will be read by you in the future. And we thank the ones who gave it. It is a beautiful, beautiful stand. Also, it's good to have Tony and Karen Rutherford here and their family. Raise your hands. We're glad to have you here. Jim and Celeste Calora, is Celeste with you? I saw Jim. Oh, yeah, you are here. They had moved. They were former members of our church, moved to Idaho. Is it Idaho? Why? But anyway, they left us and moved to Idaho, and we are delighted that you're back. You've moved to the Atlanta area. We welcome you back. It's good to see you. Catherine Elliott's mother and father and grandmother are here. Where are you? I saw them earlier. Where are you? Raise your hands. Where are you? Did you leave? Oh, here. Over here. We are delighted to have you. Raise them again. I wasn't able to point out. We're delighted to have you, and we love Catherine. It's good to have you here. Our district superintendent and his wife are up there in the balcony, Dan and Carol Brown. We're delighted that you are here as well. It's good to see you. Good to have all of you here. If I've missed somebody, my apologies. It's good to have everyone here. I always like to pick up Time magazine at the end of the year to look back and see what all has happened over the year. And the one word that seems to capture our world, our nation, and this church through 2013 has been the word change. There are new words that will be added to Webster's dictionary from 2013. Binge watching. Do all of you know what binge watching is? Well, let me tell you, it's like, for example, if you want to see one of your TV shows like Downton Abbey, you would get all 3 seasons and watch it on Sunday afternoon. That's binge watching. That's a new word in Webster's dictionary. Hashtag. How many know what hashtag is? Well, good. I don't. So you can tell everybody afterwards. Then there's the word selfie. Now, I know what a selfie. You know what selfie is? It's where you take your phone and take a picture of yourself or you with somebody. That's a new word. Mansplaining. Do you know what mansplaining is? It's when a man tells a woman he thinks is not capable of understanding how sports work or how a car works. It's called mansplaining. And then there's another word that I'm not going to use from the pulpit. It's what Miley Cyrus did on television. Father, forgive her. But what she did is a new word that's added to the dictionary for this year. And then we've lost some of the great people. The great people. Margaret Thatcher. Van Claveren, one of the great musicians of the world. One of my all-time favorite authors died, Tom Clancy. Oh, how we'll miss him. And the actor James Gandolfini, country singer George Jones, comedian Jonathan Winters and Gene Stapleton. For those who don't know either of those, they are more our older generation. Gene Stapleton from All in the Family. Oh, how I loved her. What a wonderful actress. Annette Funicello, Mickey Mouse Club. Corey Monteith, you know who that is? Glee. These young people are looking at me like I just grew horns or something. You don't know these people? I didn't know him, but I used him for you, you know, Corey Monteith, okay? I'm cool. I'm just not, you know. Anyway, sorry about that. Y'all need to get with it, let me tell you. Anyway, during this past year, we've witnessed typhoons, a horrible Boston Marathon tragedy, government shutdown, healthcare woes, continued unrest in the Middle East, killings around the world and in this country, women held in bondage for 10 years in a man's basement. It seems incomprehensible that humans would treat humans in such a way. And fires that have destroyed thousands of acres and homes, killing 19 firemen at one time. Oh my goodness. Random shootings. The Catholic Church is seeing great change with their new Pope, who was Time Magazine's Man of the Year, as he should have been. I was talking with some friends the other day, and we had to stop. We were in the car, and we had to stop for a school bus several times. It's difficult to be behind a school bus. It tests my religion. But anyway, we were behind the school bus, and a friend of mine turned to me and said, "Do you remember when we walked to school?" I felt like my dad. We used to walk 3 miles to school. But we did. We walked to school, and nobody ever worried about anything. We don't do that anymore. I was listening to a Christmas song the other day on television, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and I noticed that they used a word that we use in a different context today, make the Yuletide gay. And I thought any young person or under my generation would not understand what that meant. In my generation, when that song was first created, to make the Yuletide gay was to make it happy and joyful. Okay, times have changed. Our vocabulary is changing. The world is changing. And the people of Isaiah's day were going through great change themselves. Their people were afraid. They experienced war. They had lost thousands of people in death. They were grieving. They were losing. And they asked for a sign. They asked for a sign. Don't we do that sometimes? God, just give me a sign that somehow you're here. And Isaiah says, yes, you will have a sign. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. It is the first time in the Bible that you hear the word Emmanuel was from the prophet Isaiah. First time it's used in Scripture. In the midst of all that was going on in their lives, bondage, deaths, here's a sign for you, Emmanuel. It's the same for Joseph and Mary. In the time of the birth of Jesus, there was great darkness in the land. Talk about political unrest. My goodness. It was horrible. Killings and war. People afraid, hunger and poverty. A virgin shall conceive and have a baby, and you shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. God is with us. I think I've shared a little bit about this, but let me share it in a different way today. This past June, my daughter and her husband moved from their home. They were appointed to a new place. They lived in Carnesville, Georgia. Have you ever heard of Carnesville? The rest of you are just sitting there. That's actually in Georgia. It's in North Georgia. And when they were appointed there 3 years ago, all we could sing to our daughter was Green Acres. You remember that show, Green Acres? And she didn't find that funny at all. But that's exactly where they moved. My daughter, who was raised in the city, who loves New York, lived in London for a while and loves all that big-time stuff, moved to the country. Her only neighbors were donkeys and cows and pigs. You couldn't see a house anywhere around. Little bitty church where her husband was the pastor. Well, that's the only home my older two grandchildren, who are 4 and 2, my older grandchildren, ever knew. Little school. And see, my daughter taught preschool in Athens, 18 miles from where they lived, in Athens, Georgia. And she would take the children to school. She taught there, and then she'd bring them home, and she was with them half a day. Well, they moved to Canton, where my son-in-law is the chaplain of Reinhardt University. And they actually moved into a neighborhood with sidewalks and houses. And, oh, it's so exciting for them. So exciting. They feel that they've moved back to civilization. And we were there when they moved in, and the two older grandchildren ran around the house, and oh, how much they loved it. It was exciting, and they had their own rooms, and everything was just wonderful. And oh, we love it, we love it, we love it. And about 10 days after they moved, my oldest granddaughter said to her parents, "When are we going home? When are we going home?" And they said, "We are at home." And my granddaughter said, No, we're not. I missed my other home. Well, I want you to know that even in the last couple of weeks, my granddaughter has said to her mother, "Mama, I want you to teach at my school." You see, now the daddy takes them to school. Meredith teaches in middle school, about 20 minutes from the house. She picks them up, but it's at the end of the day. And she said, "I want to go home, Mama. I want you to be in our school, and I want to go back to my Sunday school class." Well, see, they go to a big church now. Well, of course she wants to go back to her Sunday school class. They were in a little church, and the woman who taught her Sunday school, that was her only pupil. Of course she'd want to go back. She got all the attention. Everything was heaped on her. "I want to go back there." Well, honey, we can't go back there. This is our new home. And she loves her home. She loves her new teachers. We've gone to her class. Grandparents' Day, we went, oh, she loves her teachers. She loves everything about it. But even while she's enjoying her new place, she is grieving the old. Did you realize there is grief in the midst of joy? You think about that a minute. So it's with some new parents, first time having babies. How are y'all adjusting? Any of you who've had a baby for the first time? It's a stark realization your life is never the same. A lot of women go through postpartum depression because they're excited to have a new baby, but they grieve the life that was, right? You want to know about grief and joy? I perform weddings all the time. All the time. Let me tell you about grief in the midst of joy. It's when you see the mother of the bride sitting right there, and the mother of the groom sitting over there. And you see the dad, who's a big old football player kind of guy, bring his daughter down the aisle. And I say to him, "Who gives your daughter to be married to him?" They cry. And yet the daddy wouldn't have it any other way, would they? It isn't that they're sad that they're getting married. It's that there's grief in the midst of joy. When my oldest sister married, she married in June. We thought everything was fine. We loved the new brother-in-law, happy, until Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we didn't like him anymore. Because they didn't spend Thanksgiving with us, and we had to have Christmas on a different day because of his parents. And I loved him, but I didn't like him anymore. He changed the whole family dynamic by wedding, by marriage. Well, I want to speak to you very personally this morning, very personally. I think this congregation is experiencing grief in the midst of joy. We're excited about this place. It is one of the most beautiful places. I want to tell you, it is the talk of the North Georgia Conference. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. It is stunningly beautiful. And yet being here means that we do things differently than we did before. And many are grieving that. It's taken a lot of money to get us to this place. And I have to tell you, it's been somewhat of a letdown for all of us, me included, to build such a place and to have some of you shaking your heads that you can't hear and understand. Do you know how much I grieve that? Do you know what I grieve is our first Sunday, this place had 1,700 people in it. Second Sunday, we had 1,690, and people couldn't understand. And a new sanctuary like this should be packed to capacity. And I grieve those who have come to be a part of this place and left because they couldn't understand a word. It is not the fault of those over there. Please do not go over there to the sound people. It is not their fault. Do not go see Greg Casto, who chaired the building steering committee. It is not their fault. And please don't come see me. It is not my fault. I don't know anything about sound systems. But what I do want you to know is the last 2 Sundays have been fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm hoping and praying, and I need you to hope and pray, before Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to get it back to the way it was the last 2 Sundays for Christmas Eve. And for all time. Do you know what I want to, by the way, if you missed service today, you can go on the web. It's clear on the web. If you want to listen to the sermon or the whole service on the web, and you can hear it clearly there. Now, do you know what I relate it to? It's like it took us 7 years to get to this place. It's like buying a Rolls Royce. You've saved and you saved and you saved, and you bought the creme de la creme car of your dreams, and you call all your friends together and you say, come for a ride. And they get in the car, and some of them are carrying Cokes and eating popcorn, and you say, no. Not in this Rolls Royce. You're going to have to leave that over here. Because you see, this car is different than my other one. You're going to need to leave that over here. And so they get in the car, and they're so excited to see how all the buttons work and everything. And then you're driving down the road, and they experience that new smell of a car. Oh, and that new car smell just wonderful. It's just wonderful. And you're driving down the road, and you say, let me turn on the radio so you can hear the stereo of a Rolls Royce. And you turn it on, and what comes out, you can't understand a thing. It's probably your kid's radio station. But anyway, no, just teasing, sort of. But anyway, actually, you can't understand anything. It's just horrible. And you've invited all these guests to be here in your car, and you think, I've just paid all this money for this, and it's not working right. And you take it back to the dealer, and the dealer says, we don't understand. We'll send it back. We'll see what we can do. And try. They haven't been able to get it right. But you don't want your old car back. You just want the sound system. And you want people to feel comfortable in your car like they did in the old car. But it's different. It's very different. You see, where we were before, we ate, we danced, we played, sports, we worshiped. Children ran around in it. It was a good place. But we don't worship there anymore. We're in a new place. And we're learning how to live into it. And as excited as we are about this, and it is so beautiful for Christmas, it's so beautiful about it, everything about it, we are grieving in the midst of our joy. Now I want to shift gears a minute and tell you that over my years in ministry, I've had, and in this church, we've had tragedy to happen. I've had people to say to me before walking into a funeral home, I really don't want to go in there because I don't know what to say. What do you say to somebody who's lost a child or a spouse or a parent in a tragic way? I don't have the words. What do I say? I understand that. I didn't understand that until my father died. And when my father died, not only did I being on the side where someone had died, I didn't know what to say because I couldn't articulate my grief. But I had a hard time when people came up to me and tried to talk about it. And I wanted to say, just don't talk to me about it, because nothing you say is going to help. We don't have the words. When my dad died, you see, it was more of a sudden death, and I went through all the stages of grieving. The first stage of grieving is denial. And then there's bargaining. Oh God, if you'll just bring him back, if you'll just bring him back. And then I got angry. And then I got depressed. And then we come to acceptance. And I came on the year anniversary of my dad's death. I dreaded that day so badly, and of all things, it's when the veil of all that lifted, and my dad's in the right place in my heart now, and I've gone on. For a while, I couldn't even go into a store that sold father's cards, like birthday or Father's Day or something, and I'd want to be angry at the store. Why are you carrying this? I didn't want to go in there. It hurt so badly. I want you to know that one of my beloved professors when I was in college, he's the one that I've told you spent about 18 years working on a definition of love, and many of you have written that down and committed it to heart, the wishing and wanting the highest and best for others, being willing aggressively to work for it, if need be to die for it, and expecting nothing in return. He was the first Fuller Calloway professor in the United States. I wrote a thesis in college under him in the psychology of religion. My second year of seminary, I received a call that his wife had died. And so I made arrangements to drive from Emory University down to LaGrange, where I went to college, for the funeral. When I walked out to the door to where he was receiving people at the end of the service, I gave him a big hug, and then I said to him, I'm so sorry about this. What can I do for you? And to my surprise, you know what he said? You can be at my house 2 weeks from today on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And I wanted to say, what else do you need? He said, I know you're very busy. Would you come to my house 2 weeks from today at 3 o'clock? And I thought, what on earth? Why? And I said, well, of course. So I changed my plans. I drove to LaGrange. The door was standing open. I walked in. He was in the back of the house, sitting in the floor with tears streaming down his face, and he had his wife's clothes all around him on the floor, her shoes, her costume, jewelry, her perfume, her makeup. Everything was on the floor, and there were boxes. And I said, oh, now I know why you want me to come. You want me to help pack up her things. And he looked at me and he said, no, I don't want you to do that. It wasn't really a kind no. No. He said, what I want you to do is to sit in that chair over there. I just want you to sit there. For 2 hours, I sat there in silence. He would pick up a dress, pack it up and put it in a box. And then he would pick up a sweater and he would say to himself, you know, she wore this at such and such a place. Oh, we had such fun. But now she's not going to wear this anymore. And he'd put it in the box. These shoes, oh, how she loves shoes. I didn't realize women liked shoes so much till I married. But anyway, she had all these shoes. And he would take the shoes and it was almost sacramentally put them in the box that would go to Goodwill. I want you to know that my being in that room for 2 hours without speaking a word taught me something I don't think I would have learned otherwise. And that is the vital ministry of presence. Of presence. You don't need to know the words. Just be there. Just be there. Somehow my presence helped him to be able to articulate his grief in such a way he was able to put his wife's things into boxes and take them to Goodwill and move on in his life. You see, it's God's presence, my friends, that helps us do the same thing. I had a person say to me the other day in this church, "Dee, I hope we don't have any more change for a while." And you know what I did? I laughed. You should laugh too. Who can stop change? Tell me who can stop change. Well, there are only a few certainties in life: death, taxes, and change. I can't stop change any more than you can. I've heard a few people say in this church, we have too many rules now. And I would go so far as to say we have no new rules. We have a new way of living. We live differently in a Rolls Royce than we did in another car. They aren't rules, it's just a way of life. Growth is never easy, and neither is change. But all these months we've been in here, I've been trying to put my finger on the name of what's caused our unrest here. And it isn't change at all. It's grief. We grieve in the midst of joy. We grieve in the midst of joy. We grieve those who used to work here while we're excited about new people working here. We grieve some things about the way we used to do things in the past as we enjoy this place now. What I want you to hear is we're all in this together. I'm with you in this. All that's taken place isn't about clergy versus congregation. This is something, my friends, we all did together. This was a congregation thing. And the clergy are here to be with you and for you to be with us as we grieve in the midst of joy. If you need to come to our offices, you can come and I'll sit and just be there. We need to be present for one another. Isaiah was trying to say to the people of his day that the sign for us to get through whatever life dishes out is Emmanuel. For Mary and Joseph to get through the ordeal of their life, and the birth of the Christ could have cost Mary and Joseph their lives. For a woman to be expecting a child and not be married in her day, she could have been punished by death. For Joseph to stay with her, he could have been punished by death. All that the Holy Family went through, God said to them, "You name this child Emmanuel, God with us." That's what it's all about. You see, Christmas is not about decorations and Christmas trees and Christmas parties and cooking and all the things that we even gift-giving. The very essence of Christmas is that God came to us in such a way that we would know God is with us no matter what we go through in life, in death, in crisis, in joy. God is with us. I close by telling you a true happening with Gordon MacDonald, who's a wonderful author. He spoke in Colorado a couple of years ago at a hospital, and a Nigerian woman physician came up to him after he spoke and complimented his lecture. And she introduced herself by her American name. And Gordon MacDonald said to her, "What is your African name?" And she spouted off this real long name that had a lot of syllables in it. And he said, what does your African name mean?" And she said, "It means child who takes the anger away." Child who takes the anger away. He said, "Well, there's got to be a story behind that." And she said, "Oh, yes." She said, "When my parents fell in love, his parents and her parents forbid them to marry. But their love was so strong They married anyway. And both sets of parents said, we'll have nothing to do with you. They were so angry at them, they shunned them for several years until this physician, their little baby, was born. And when they took the baby to see the parents enfolded them in their loving care and took that baby, and that baby caused their anger to go away and to heal that relationship. And so she was named Child Who Takes the Anger Away. My friends, in this world, we're going to have change. And there's one whose name can take away the sting of death, the sting of our hurt, the sting of our sorrow, and give us strength and courage and inner peace to be able to move from the cemetery into new life, to be able to move from one city to another city, to move forward when a spouse says, I don't love you anymore, to cope when our finances are gone, our health is gone, our friends are gone, our grades are bad. When life is traumatic, God is with us. It is my prayer in this Christmas Sunday that we find strength in what remains behind. And let us go forward, even in our grief, to spread joy and enthusiasm and excitement, because there's a world that is grieving outside these walls, that's hurting and lonely, and they do not know Emmanuel. It is our job to take the good news to all. I preached this sermon this morning in the name of God, who is the great giver, Christ, who came to show us the way to live, and the Holy Spirit, that is God's very presence in life and death and life beyond death. Thanks be to God. Amen.